Good evening, I'm Julie Chen.
Wake up, everybody!
But first,
I cannot. On my daughter's birthday. Disgusting. Anybody want cake?
I want to welcome you guys all to my big brother funeral.
I can't find an individual to hate because I hate you all.
Welcome to Not Game, All Personal. Hey, we are a Big Brother podcast here, talk about all things Big Brother, more specifically the finale of Big Brother 26. I'm Nathan. This is Tony. Tony, how are we feeling? Is this, let's get into it. Is this one of the most dominant wins we've seen in recent years?
It was pretty dominant. Like I think there was a question there, but once they did like the jury questioning, like it couldn't have been more clear who was about to win the game. I would say probably a top 8 winner of all time, maybe even higher. Like I'm being conservative there. Probably a top 5 season, I would argue.
Oh, interesting. Top 5 season.
There's a part of me that's
It's
like
good.
it's the best season since maybe like Big Brother 12 or Big Brother 10. Like it's the best in a while. Because you
that
have
argument.
like this phenomenal season entertainment wise where there was really only 2 weeks where we were bored. And then you also have this dominant winner who was playing the game the whole time, and you have this like full narrative of their like story throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
Winning against somebody who is also very strong. Like it's very rare to have a great season with a great winner. Like it's just not a common thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I could not be more pleased, honestly.
Yeah, and I think it's also, I think that's a good way of putting it. It's like the way that she won, the fact that it was tied consistently throughout the season, the fact that she did have obstacles, not a lot, but like there were times where, she lost alliance members. There was times like she was on the block that, like stuff did happen. And I think the final 2 especially, to me, was like key in like assuring this as like one of the best winners we've ever seen, because it wasn't someone that's like they made their way to the end and then they took the GOAT, right? Like,
yep.
Where we could have predicted this from, or I don't know, like this was actually someone who I think, if the questions are worded different or her answers are slightly different, like perhaps Mackenzie has a better chance. It's hard to really tell, but I think going into finale night, that was at least an option for us as the viewers.
Mm-hmm. I think she had locked in votes for sure, but I think there were a couple questions that like people were begging for a reason to vote for Mackenzie instead. I think a couple of them, and so and Mackenzie just wasn't able to offer the answers that would have gotten that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's dive in. Where do you want to start? What do we want to dig into a little bit here?
Really quick, last thing on this kind of.
Oh yeah, sorry. Sorry.
I did. No, you're good. I did pull up my Big Brother winners ranked because we did do that, and I was trying to find. I should have done this before. If I had the
I have mine too.
Oh, you do have yours. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I recently put them in like a notes app just so I had them.
Yeah, I did as well. I don't want to like confidently just stick her in yet, so I'm not going to give her an official placement because I do want more time to think about it. But I would say there's a chance she reaches my top 5. And right now, in 5th I have Maggie, and 4th I have Hayden. So it's like if those are the people I'm comparing her to, like I could easily be swayed to like put her in that 4th or 5th position, to be honest.
I threw her in at 7. I think there's 3 that can't be touched. I think that's Dan, Derek, and Cody. Like that's such a high error like place to be in here.
Yeah.
But then I have her behind Maggie, Will, and Andy currently, right above Hayden.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's all valid.
There's definitely the argument that she's the best female winner that we've ever had. Maggie is a tough one to like compare to because the game feels so different between the two.
Right. Yep. That's always the complicated aspect of this game is like, how do you even, which is, I think why we maybe controversially both put Dr. Will a little lower as far as like a single win, like not as an overall player, but like his winning game. But that was, I think we only recorded that last summer. Like that wasn't that long ago. I'm pretty sure we recorded it before Big Brother 25. So, you want to go listen to it? It's
Will
up there.
Won All-Stars, like he'd be in that like untouchable zone, I would argue. Like like that's the game that I think that shows his mastery of the game more than anything else.
Right. Yep, completely agree.
This isn't a Dr. Will podcast.
I mean, we'll briefly touch on him at some
We
point,
will.
but
That's very true. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. So congrats, Chelsea. Great win, great season. I do want to take more time at some point to think about my ranking of the seasons now, because I definitely agree it's up there. But yeah, I mean, I think we'll just touch on some of the minor details leading up to her win, and then I think want to spend the bulk of the time talking about, I think, the jury aspect and voting and questioning, because that's the most exciting
Mhm.
part.
Mhm.
But no surprise, her and Mackenzie win the first two parts of the HOH. I don't know. Like, I think we kind of tossed out some scenarios. I don't think we really fully believed it'd be any other option other than the two of them sitting there
Yeah.
battling it out. And then Mackenzie wins it and decides to take Chelsea over Cam. Decision that, I mean, essentially cost her, $700,000. I mean, she doesn't seem to even like regret this move though. If you've seen any of like the
No.
interviews post the show, I still not even confident she understands the nature of the rules of the game or anything like that.
And we have these people all the time where they're just like so focused on loyalty, and like they're almost it's almost like Banu. That's a Survivor reference if you don't watch Survivor, sorry. But like it's almost like she's trying to win people over as opposed to winning the game. Like she wants to be seen as this loyal person, and I don't think anybody like. There's a part of me that I guess respects that aspect, but like also I would have respected more you just taking the money and running, probably. You know?
100%. And I do like, is there a part of her that thought that loyalty might be shown to the jury as far as like, oh, what, like, was she concerned about backstabbing Chelsea, or does she literally just not have it in her? Or I think my theory that I think is probably the most accurate, I just don't think she fully understood, I don't think she understood that Chelsea was playing the game that she played. Chelsea actually did talk about that in some of her exit interviews, that Mackenzie was very focused on the competition aspect as far as like the resume goes, and Chelsea even kind of like had these conversations with her as like oh yeah, I'm not even preparing a final speech. I don't know, like I might say that, like what she clearly did, and it was clearly rehearsed. It was so, but like she definitely was planting these seeds to kind of throw Mackenzie off, to make it seem like, oh, if Mackenzie takes Chelsea, then it's a shoo-in for Mackenzie to win the game. So
Yeah.
respect for Chelsea for playing her up until the very last moment that she could.
And that's exactly what I was gonna say. She's been working on Mackenzie for weeks. Like, and there's I remember seeing a clip of like her talking to Brooklyn. So this is like the first couple weeks,
Yeah.
and she pretty quickly identified Mackenzie as like maybe not the most intelligent game, like the smartest game player. Like she was like, yeah, I feel like we can just like manipulate or like use her a little bit. Like I can't remember the exact verbiage she used. It might not have been that harsh, but she early on identified like Mackenzie is somebody that I can like puppet a little bit. I can convince her to do things. And then that's all she's done for the past few weeks, is she identified the biggest threat in the house competition wise and just like became the angel on her shoulder that told her what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think the order of questioning was a little sus to me. Not upset because I'm happy Chelsea won, but the fact that they asked Mackenzie first about like what move did you do that was completely your own and no one else it didn't benefit anyone else, no one manipulated you, and then asked Chelsea the same question to give her the final word on that sentiment. I like, the producers knew what was going to happen. They knew the order of questions. So like they were definitely setting Chelsea up to have this slam dunk moment, which I'm not totally upset by, but I'm like, in any other world where if I was rooting for Mackenzie, like that is a little bogus to have her go first like that.
Yeah, but at the same time, when you like, she genuinely has that opinion. Like she genuinely believes that was her best move, and we've been talking about for weeks. We do not believe that's the case. We're not in the house. Like we never really know 100% what would have been better. You can't play that game really, but it just wasn't a good move for her in that moment. It was a good move for Chelsea, which you could argue is a good move for her because she's locking in Chelsea as an ally. But
that's not like how she worded it either. I think that's the problem. Like there is a way she could talk her way around it, but she gave the absolute wrong answer.
Yeah, and so once you know that she's gonna do that, yeah, you're gonna make it good for TV, and I loved it. I loved every second. I thought it was great.
Well, it just goes back to this thing that I've been saying for a couple seasons now. I think like what I notice is the biggest thing that the jury latches onto is when they ask you a question, they already are coming into it with an expected response or like their own perception on how you're going to answer it because they have their
Mm-hmm.
opinions on is this a good move? Were you a part of this? Blah blah blah. And the more that you can either match your answer to their perception, that's going to be beneficial. Or if it doesn't match their perception, bring up receipts so that you can prove that,
Yeah.
hey, you actually have this wrong view of this, and let me show you why. So I think, like, for
Mm-hmm.
Mackenzie in that moment, the jury knew it was a bad move, and so her answering that showed, like, oh, she doesn't have a read on what's happening. And then Chelsea gave her answer, which contradicted Mackenzie, but Chelsea actually had the receipts. Like, she actually pointed out the logic behind the move, saying like, "Hey, I knew if I did this, it would lead to this and this, so that's why I did it." And the jury's like, "Oh yeah, that does make sense." So it was just like textbook, I don't know, like jury questioning, where it's like, I think a lot of times the jury questions can be kind of lame and not really consequential to like the actual votes themselves. But I do think it is an opportunity for you to like either confirm their assumptions of your game or kind of steer them in the right direction. And I think we saw both of those scenarios play out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a difficult game because most of them are pretty much decided. You might have a couple that are on the fence, but if you answer it perfectly, like I feel like Chelsea did, you can sway those surprisingly more than you'd realize. And I think Taylor is a great example of that a few years ago, where do I agree with it? Maybe not necessarily, but it was her jury questions that I feel like really brought out her win. I think.
Yeah, yeah, her speech is definitely known as like the convincing speech, just not for Turner apparently,
Yeah, and
which I still think is very funny that
yeah,
so
I do
close to
think
a
that
perfect
like
game.
Chelsea being older and having, I think like public speaking experience and just like knowing the game, those
Hmm.
were huge for her. I think Mackenzie, most of all, she's just so young and
Yeah.
hasn't watched the show a ton, and so she just wasn't prepared for. And like you said, she was like, "Oh, I'll maybe not prepare something," and I'm sure she did because Chelsea's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go take an hour or two and prepare my speech," and like spent time doing that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that was a huge part too. Is she's younger, and so that was more of a challenge. She is younger,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, she's 22. Like
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd answer those questions, and Chelsea's only 27, but I feel like she has some of that experience speaking in front of people.
Is she an actual like? I know they kept calling her a preacher. Is like she an actual like preacher, pastor? It says nonprofit director. I'm assuming that's something
I was
religion
under the
related,
impression
right?
she did like yeah, some sort of like pastoring something.
I
Was my
know it
impression.
was probably talked about, and I just didn't pay attention. But because obviously her faith was a large part of her story throughout the season as
Oh yeah.
well. Which I think that was the one that when both of them got up there, thanking God and everything, I was like, oh, Julie is loving this. I was shocked Julie didn't like respond to either of them. I was like, Julie, you got two finalists that are like professing their faith on national TV. Like, how are you not just lighting up right now?
Oh, she was losing her mind, I'm sure, but she probably couldn't.
They've been reeling her in.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I mean, do you want to just keep talking about the jury questions or other aspects of that?
Do we want to go back and talk about the jury roundtable first, or do we want to keep digging into
Yeah,
that?
we could do that. Let's talk about the jury roundtable. I mean, I guess what did you think? You were more hesitant than I was about the choice of host being Taylor replacing
Taylor's
Will.
not my favorite person. Taylor is a very like she's a good host.
Yeah.
And she has become like a huge fan. I don't think she was a fan before her season, but I think she really has latched on to Big Brother and loves it. Boy, when she gave it to Angela a couple times, I was in. I was all in. I
That
was
was going
fist
to be my
pumping in
question.
the
When
and
I
I was
saw
like,
that,
"Yes, get her. I'm all in. I'm a Taylor fan. I'm
I
a
was
Taylor fan
like,
now."
what is Tony gonna do? Like, how is he going to? Okay, so I'm glad I know now. That was like one of my
Yep.
top questions: is what side are we taking here?
Yeah, and I think I mean they only show you a little bit of that conversation, and most of it's
Mm-hmm.
cut up to be like everybody has a chance, except they didn't really give Cam a chance. I feel like in any of that, but
No,
I mean
yeah.
she did what she needed to do. I think, and I think it's important that the person at the round table does push back on some of those like bitterness things because that does cloud your judgment. And so, and if somebody wants to dig in their heels and be bitter, like that's the game, and that's that the person did that to make
But
them
at
bitter.
least you had like a winner kind of
Yeah,
trying to talk you down and some sense into you.
exactly.
Right.
And Taylor is going to have more pull than Will. Unfortunately, that's just the case. And like Dan
Yeah.
is one that I would have loved to see do that. Nobody knows who Dan is because he doesn't really engage in the Big Brother world a ton anymore. And so,
Well,
it
that's
being
what I was
somebody
gonna
like
say
Taylor just makes
too.
sense.
You know, I know like last time we talked, you brought up, Derek as like an option. Like that would have been a good choice. But I'm like, we're even like getting a decent amount of time away from like that season. And I
Yeah.
know he's still on and he still does his contract work for them, I suppose. But uh,
Yeah.
I think like Taylor is definitely one of the faces of like the past 4 or 5 years,
Mhm.
especially like winners. You know what I mean? Like you could have Xavier. I don't know if he's gonna have as electric of a personality as Taylor might.
Yeah. Great player doesn't equal great communication skills, and I think he
Right.
was the best communicator and also a winner, and that
Yeah.
makes sense. And yes, a lot of this is me backtracking because I'm jacked that she called out Angela, but I still honestly I enjoyed it.
I think my biggest take from this, and this isn't a slight on her facilitating it. I don't think I care that much about the jury roundtable as I thought I did. And even like
No.
thinking back in hindsight, I'm like, how many moments have we actually had that have been like good TV or entertaining or felt like natural and not forced? I don't know, because like there are moments where it's like the jury got electric and it was just like, oh my goodness, tension is high. But like the
Mhm.
past couple seasons, I feel like it is just like these pre-planned questions and they're kind of giving the answers you know they're going to do. And I think maybe especially for us, people who analyze the show every single week, like there's nothing that they say that really surprises me. Um, so I don't know, like this year it just felt like it was like, oh, I guess you can just stick anyone in that place and it's not going to be that much different. Like would Dr. Will have done it any different than her? I don't know, perhaps, but like not really, because like these are questions that like the producers are probably writing that they just need someone to like read them out and then maybe have a little bit of their own personality or opinion in there. So I don't know. I don't want to be like down on the whole segment, but I think that this year I noticed it because it just felt like a plug and play. Anyone can
Yeah.
kind of sit in, and you're not gonna really notice that much of a difference.
And if you really think about it, these jurors are having these conversations every day themselves. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is just them all like having their hive mind like answers. And yes, they have their different opinions, but I feel like they often settle in similar directions, and that's why you have these dominant wins like this more recently.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to have some voice come in and be kind of a voice of reason and maybe a voice of the fan a little bit, or like the big fan of Big Brother, and we're like, or then push back on maybe some of that bitterness, or introduce them to maybe another way of looking at it without trying to manipulate the votes, because that's not the goal. But you want informed jurors. Like we don't want to just throw random people who haven't watched anything and make them figure it out. Like we want a correct winner. And so yeah, I think it's important to have that extra voice just to push back on a couple things and make them second guess and think about it a little bit more. I think
Yeah.
that's the most value.
I will say, this was the most I've liked Quinn the entire season. Is him
Yeah.
talking about the final. I mean, his whole finale. I mean, I don't know. Like it was just like he's just bringing up these points. I'm like, thank you. Like someone's thinking about this. This is good. I like the way that your brain's working. And I don't know. I think it did really make me realize like maybe I would like Quinn if it wasn't for all the eccentric like DR trying to like be this character. Cause like
Yeah.
I think he
Mhm.
did show like he does have a mind for the game. Obviously his actions didn't really back up a logical gameplay, but I don't know. Like hearing him talk at the round table, I was like, okay, I think I don't. It's not that I disliked him, but I just I was like, okay, I get it now. I understand. What kind of super fan you are now.
Yeah, he's great in doses, but yeah, when he's trying to put on the character, it's not super great.
Hmm.
I'm definitely in on that. And I said that in the last like once he was going out, I was like, some of the things he says are funny. It's just he's throwing so much at the wall that it's hard to find the like good things in there that he's saying.
Right. Exactly.
I looked up
Yeah.
Chelsea's LinkedIn, so just a little follow up. She's a creative director at a church, and then is a marketing communications coordinator at a nonprofit. It looks like so she does work at a church as well. Doesn't
Okay.
do like pastoral stuff. It looks like, but is around that a lot.
Go. Anything else on the jury roundtable?
No, that's all I got. Take
Angela
that,
got shut
Angela.
down. Getting to, I guess, the jury when it came to the actual vote.
I will say quickly one last thing on
Yeah.
Angela. I'm glad she was on the season because I think it wouldn't have been as good a season without her. I think so few people pushed back on her insane things this season. Like it felt kind of rare that people pushed back really at all to her face. And I think that's why it felt so good to have Taylor be like, "Are you just being bitter though?" And like, really, you think that? And like push back a little bit because that's kind of the name of the game. Like, why make waves when you don't have to? Like, I don't blame the people for doing that. And
Yeah.
it happens with everybody else as well, where they don't get pushed back on things that maybe they should be.
Mhm.
But yeah, just want to say I'm happy she was on the season because it wouldn't have been the same season without her. Still not an Angela fan.
Did it surprise you, jumping a little ahead, that she was in the top 3 for America's Favorite
No,
Houseguest?
because I was locked in on like Twitter, and I was actually with my buddy Nick, and I was like, we were talking about America's Favorite House Guest, and I was like, Angela's gonna be in the top 3. Like, I'm just telling you right now. And he's like, no, she's not. And we bet $20, so I won $20 that she was in the top 3. It was great.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I'm not sure what the casuals think, like the Facebook group specifically. I think they're still out on her because they were. I mean, I still think they are in love with Matt and just want him back for some reason. But like the Reddit Twitter crowd, I mean, they've never stopped standing her. Like,
Yeah.
I think she got all their votes over Tucker, to be quite honest.
Oh, I'm
Like,
sure.
I mean, people love her, and I get both sides, but I am glad
Would
she was on the
you?
season.
You're casting a vote. Who
Mhm.
do you think deserved it more, Tucker or Angela?
Who deserved it more? I
Ooh,
guess I've
that's an
never even
interesting way to
thought of
say it.
it. It's like,
That's not a good way to put it. Who are you voting for? Who do you think should have been America's Favorite House Guest?
I would probably do Tucker because I think
Okay.
the way that I look at it is I look at it as like, who is a person that I am so glad they were on this season. I appreciate like what they contributed. Like I want to make almost like a statement with it of like, this is the person that I think. So I think Angela's up there, but I think Tucker probably has more of like, I'm so thankful that he was on the season. I'm so thankful for the gameplay that he did, the entertainment, shaking up the house. And I think
Yeah.
Angela is also up there with that standard of voting, but just not as much as Tucker.
Okay. Checks out.
Yeah. I'm guessing you would just go Tucker all the way. Not
Yeah.
even a question.
I said it. I think he's the most entertaining house guest we've had. Maybe ever. Like he's
Yeah.
up there. I love him so much. But
Yeah. He better do the challenge. That's all I'm saying. Can you
it's on
imagine?
them. It's entirely on the challenge to decide if he's gonna be. But he would be so much fun on the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want that so bad. Yeah. So getting down to the actual vote, did it surprise you at all that it was unanimous? Did you think Mackenzie would get a vote or two, or after the speeches were you kind of locked in as like, oh, 100% not a chance?
After the speeches, I thought it was pretty locked in. I think a huge thing that Chelsea did was, and this is something that I've considered but have been too lazy to go back and actually look at, the fact that Mackenzie played, I think she said like 6 or 7 more competitions than her. So of course she
Yeah.
has more wins.
Yep.
Like, yes, Mackenzie still probably has a higher percentage, but it's much, much closer. And it's like Mackenzie, yeah, was in trouble a lot, and that's why she did like competed in more competitions. But Chelsea just didn't have to play that much and didn't have to
Mhm.
win that much. And I will always be somebody who values over, I didn't need to, and I'm still running this game, and I needed to do this because I needed to survive.
I'm trying to look. Was the AI arena that Chelsea won, was that the only time she was on the block? I think so, right?
I think so.
Okay. So I mean, even that's huge because like Mackenzie was on a couple times, and then
Mm-hmm.
she won 2 AI arenas, right? So like if we're talking about those, like yeah, Chelsea didn't even have the chance to play, but also Power of Veto, which Mackenzie was always on the block, so she always got to play in those. So yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was an excellent point. I also think like along with the competitions, her whole framing of the final 2. She kind of like insinuated she might have thrown the final HOH. I don't know if that's been confirmed or not. I probably should have checked. I don't think she did, but I think her point of like, look, I know I didn't need to win this because I knew that Cam and Mackenzie would have both taken me. And I think everyone knew that about Cam, but actually seeing Mackenzie do it, I think helped prove Chelsea's point even more, which I thought was fantastic because I think like if she wins that final HOH, she doesn't have that argument anymore. They're like, Mackenzie would have taken me. Well, we don't know that. But now that she's actually shown that, I think was
Yeah.
absolutely huge. So it's like, look, not only did I not need to win competitions, I literally just proved to you that I didn't need to win the competition. So why are we comparing competitions right now if that's not even something I cared about? So I thought that was just cherry on top for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just being able to rub that in and be like, it's so clear at that point. And I think yes, there was the risk that there would be people who were bitter or wanted the competition wins to win or whatever. But yeah, just the way that she answered everything and laid it out completely removed that as a possibility to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and she just wins. Dominant. This is the first oh shoot, let me pull it up. Big Brother had a TikTok with a lot of interesting stats about, which is not something they usually do. They don't care about. But Chelsea's the first woman to have a perfect game. That's a fact.
Oh yeah.
She did it. Meaning no votes placed on her in the unanimous jury vote.
I would almost argue the perfect game is the never nominated as well.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Because
Is
that's a
Derek
perfect
the only
game in
one that's done
Survivor.
that?
No, Cody's the only one. Because Jocasta
Derek
didn't vote for
wasn't?
Derek. Derek wasn't even unanimous.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jocasta.
Yeah, she was very mad. He used her faith against her.
Some other stats while I'm on this TikTok right now.
But that's
Yeah.
my definition of perfect game. If that's their definition, I mean, they're the ones in charge, so whatever.
That's fair. I wonder if it's also different because I think the AI arena throws a wrinkle into it because
It
for
does.
the first couple weeks there were 3 people nominated, which like who knows if that's an option in other seasons if more people are nominated. So like she wasn't sitting on the block during an eviction.
She was the 4th nomination that week. So like that's not common.
Sure. Yes. So I don't know. I understand what you mean. It's one of those things that's
I
tough to
think-
compare with
yeah.
different rules season to season.
I think it's one thing because if it had never happened, I don't think it'd be. But the fact that Cody did it makes me feel
Mhm.
like that has to be like the actual perfect game. And like
Yeah.
I said, in Survivor, you're always up for vote. Like there's no one on the block, so it's a little bit different.
Mhm.
And I feel like they're using Survivor definition.
All right, let me throw out these other stats to you, okay?
Yep.
This is the
I'll
first
nitpick
season
them too.
where a male was guaranteed to be the first evicted.
Oh yeah.
That a female was never an option.
Yep.
This is the first season where the first this is about the curse with the I don't care about that one. OTEP, blah blah blah. Okay, 11 consecutive vetoes. We knew that one. 12 if you count America's veto. So depending on how we want to talk about that one, either way, it's the most times it's ever been used, beating Big Brother 15. So most consecutive,
That's so
most
many
vetoes. Insane. I mean, up until which week was it? Was it the final, like 5?
Yeah, it was one of those last ones.
Insane.
Yeah, week 11.
Mm-hmm. This is the most non-unanimous votes in a row, being 9.
Oh,
9
that's
votes
awesome.
in a row where there was not a unanimous vote.
I love that.
This is
A lot of them were close, and there were like some free votes, but then yeah, there's like a 3-8, there's a 6-3.
I think Chelsea actually saved it with the Brooklyn vote. Because I think she was the only vote to keep Brooklyn that week.
She
So
for sure
thank
was.
you,
Yep.
Chelsea. This is the only time in the jury phase, okay, of the
Yep.
game that one gender was the HOH. It was all females HOH jury on.
And it
And
was just three
only
of them.
three
Like,
people. Yep.
Leah's in there, but it was Chelsea and Mackenzie the whole way. Other than that,
Yep. So it's kind of like a 2 because not only is it the most that like 3 people controlled it, but also that it was all like one gender, which is kind of unique. Obviously,
Yeah.
this is the first season that Julie didn't host, and Quinn is the only house guest that had his post interview without Julie. The only house guest in Big Brother history, which I think is a much more interesting way of phrasing the Jerry O'Connell situation. You know, because
Do you
like,
think
oh,
he
someone
hates
else
that or
hosted
loves
one.
that?
I think at this point, like when you word it like that, that's kind of cool. Like, who is the one house guest in Big Brother history that didn't meet Julie when he was evicted? That's kind of a cool stat.
Jerry O'Connell tweeted that like Quinn sent him a letter.
I did see that as well. Yeah,
I didn't read it or anything, but
I didn't
don't
read
know
it.
if he
I saw
posted what
the
it
I saw the
said,
headline.
which is
Mackenzie
great.
tied Jag with the most competition wins with 10. So I don't know. There you go. And then we knew this one, but Tucker was the first non-jury member that won America's Favorite House Guest.
I thought Mackenzie ended up with 11.
See?
Maybe that's counting the final HOH twice because she won the 2 parts, but that's one win.
Yeah, this is
I would
the official
argue.
Big Brother TikTok, so take it up with them in the comment section, please.
I'll fight him, dude. Don't tempt me.
Is there anything you want to say about the? I don't know. After I will say about this episode, I feel like this is the most time we've had, which I think finales have been like 90 minutes for the past few years. This was 2 hours. It felt like we had so much time with like the pre-jury. There was no rush. Like usually they're like rushing to read off America's Favorite House Guest before the credits roll. This one was like we had time to sit with it. So I enjoyed all that time. Was there anything like specifically like with the pre-jury that like stood out to you that you want to talk about, or was it kind of just I don't know, typical?
Well, I mean, it was typical for the most part. The Matt Angela stuff was weird. The Tucker Rubina stuff was cute. I'm not I don't love the lovey-dovey stuff on my Big Brother, but I mean it's gonna happen, and I like them both, so whatever. Yeah, I feel like Matt and Angela is the perfect rivalry because you can see both sides so well. So like, there's part of you where it's like, man, Matt's great. Look at him taking the high road and just like choosing not to be like very vindictive and like upset about this. And look at how rude Angela's being towards him. Blah blah blah. She's being so like just not nice and like whatever. But then you can also look at it and be like, man, he's really being like, oh, I'm so much better than you, and like really selling this like he's so much better and so much nicer than her. And look at her holding it together. Like it's the perfect, I feel like, rivalry.
Yeah,
I
definitely
enjoyed that.
It to me it felt very one-sided too though, because I'm like Angela's been playing a game of Big Brother. Does she have that much feelings towards the person she got out week 1? Like obviously I think
she does.
I mean maybe, but to me the whole thing was like I just think Matt needs to get over it. Cuz like how many times does he need to like forgive her? He's already done this.
He did what they wanted him to do. That wasn't.
I understand
he went
that.
in and
Yes.
was like, "I'm excited to do this," but there's also the aspect that it's like, Big Brother was gonna make him do it, regardless.
Right, I get that, but I hope that's the case because like, but the way he words things, it's so hard for me to take him seriously when he talks about like being a role model like for the youth and all this stuff. I was like, what are we talking about? Because you went out first in Big Brother and now you have all this life experience to share to the next generation. It's just like that's the kind of stuff that I hope he's sincere about it, but even if he is, I think he needs to kind of get a grip on the real world of like this sounds super corny. There's no way you can sincerely say this without it coming across as like very weird.
I felt that.
So I don't know. I wasn't surprised that they gave him so much time, but I'm like typically like the first person evicted of the season is never the storyline. And I don't think Angela would have made him the storyline, but like for some reason he still like remember what happened week 1? Yeah, I forgive you for like the 10th time. Okay.
I feel like you're acting. It was a big deal that first week. Like it was something that, like, I feel like it was a kind of big thing. I feel like you're dismissing it a little bit too much. But
I just think it's
I see
week
what you're
1 in
saying.
Big Brother.
I do see
and
what you're saying.
there have been so many things since. And that's why I'm like, does Angela consider him to be her biggest rival? Or does the 10 other fights she had that season, like it just kind of gets lost in it, I think. And for him, I get it, because for him, that was his only Big Brother moment. He is known as the guy who fought with Angela. Angela has, 5 or 6 other things that she will be known for. So I think that's the part that's kind of like he's coming in and being like, hey,
Crazy
remember
Eyes is
me?
a pretty big thing. I feel like that's like the big thing that she's remembered for. Maybe that's just because I focus on that because it makes me mad. But I feel like that's the big thing that put her on the map, really.
I mean,
But I see what you're saying. I
perhaps.
do see what you're saying. Like, she was in the house for a lot longer than that, and so boiling it down to just that, it can be frustrating and like not necessarily fair to her. There was a part of me that wanted them to, and then I don't think they ever would have, but I wanted the receipts of like, all right, Angela, let's see this threat that he made towards you. And just because then she was like, I'm not gonna apologize for the feelings that I had in that moment. That's fair. Can we at least say that it was a bit unreasonable that she got as upset over him saying something that like that didn't seem that intense? And to be fair, I didn't see the whole conversation. I saw the edit they gave me. So maybe within the conversation there's more than that, and I just don't realize that. I wish that we would have had a little clip of that, but I understand not trying to make her look worse than anything else. It was like, oh, they made up. We're good.
Yeah. I also just think it doesn't really matter that much. Because it's
No.
like, she got him out on her HOH.
This is coming from an Angela
It's kind
hater.
of right. I know.
To be
I'm just
clear.
like when you think of like just what Big Brother is, it feels weird to like hone in on this single like, why does she hate him? It's like, well, she's playing a game, Like no one else. And I guess like Tucker and Cedric had their moment where he's like, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I saw the receipts, But
Yeah.
like the amount of feuds you have in this game that don't get resolved, and yet for whatever reason the producers want Matt and Angela to, which I get it, it's ratings, I understand. I understand why everything happened the way it did. But it is one of those things where it's like, I hope he can find his own identity outside of this single moment, because he is much more attached to it than she is. I think that's my point, is like she can have a image that it goes beyond this moment. He can't, unfortunately, because like that was his thing. So
And
I don't know.
Last thing, and we're definitely stretching, making this a bigger thing than it needs to be. Bigger,
This is
and
the
I'm
most
aware of that.
important thing.
So, last point that I have, like, I like that he's able to. I don't know. I think part of it is like I feel like attacked him and like called him a bully, and that carries a lot of weight. I think she called him a bully. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember all the.
I
things
don't
she
remember.
specifically
Probably.
said. But that's like that carries a lot of weight in today's culture, and so like that's very much attacking him as a person, and that felt extreme. And so her getting some sort of like, hey, what he did isn't bullying, and making that clear, that's kind of what I was looking for, because it felt like she took it out of proportion to me.
You sound like the people on the Facebook
Brother.
group that wanted her to be expelled week 1.
I didn't want her to be expelled. That's absolutely not true.
There was petitions because
I'm definitely more in the stance where like, let them do whatever they want and let the house figure it out. Like, let them say whatever they want, and if they decide that they want to keep an awful person in for longer, like Evil Dick or someone like that, that's their choice. It's their society. It's their world to figure out.
They did, and they said Matt's a bully, so we're voting him out week 1. Like, that's all there is to it.
Kyle's a racist. He's out of here.
I mean, yeah, the house decides. And the house also decides who's the best player of the season, right? That's just how it goes.
That's true.
Anything else in the pre-jury?
Wait, no, that's not true. I disagree. Yeah, that's all I had on that. Like everything with Tucker is always gold. He's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, people turned on him a little bit online. I don't know if you saw any of that. I think some people had a little much of him. I didn't find that issue, but just a perspective.
Like,
I
oh,
wanna
why are
bring
we
up.
spending so much time with this dude in the pre-jury?
I think he just came across as a lot, and
He's
the
gonna
the
put on a show.
best.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, the best tweet I saw is that this is how he's always been, like especially on the live feeds. And if you only see the edited version, you probably don't realize, like, yeah, no, he doesn't stop talking. Like he is always
Yeah.
just yelling over people. He's always like
Mhm.
trying to input a snarky remark. And so he
Mhm.
definitely was himself on finale night, and I just don't think people who only watch the episodes realize that.
Mhm. And they for sure wanted that. Like he's America's favorite. They want him to talk as much as they can. I feel like that's why they added an extra half hour, so they could just add 20 minutes of Tucker.
I will say my favorite part of the night, which this is something I've been thinking about a lot, is that Julie announced to the house guest who was actually running for president, because they didn't even know that. Like that's how long they've been in this house, that they didn't know that
Yeah.
Joe Biden dropped out. Um, the best moment was when Julie says that. The jury reacts like, "Oh wow!" Like some of them are shocked, some of them are like, just like, "Wait, what?" And then Tucker, and there's more. And then Julie just doesn't even like acknowledge, like, "Okay, moving on." Like,
Yeah.
I want so bad to know what Tucker felt was the next logical thing to explain to them that they missed.
Probably the Trump assassinations is the
I
only
mean,
thing that I can
probably.
imagine.
Probably, but still, the way that his delivery, go back and watch it. I think it's the funniest thing that happened this entire season, because he was so excited to break to them something.
Tucker's about to be hated because he's a MAGA guy.
Julie's like, I gotta control this guy. We don't want him crossing the line.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is crazy. That week one, Julie told Matt that. Did you see that in the post interview? It was like the extended interview where she
No,
like
I've never
updated.
watched the extended
Because I'm
interviews.
pretty sure the assassination attempt happened the weekend before the season started, so they were already in sequester. So
Oh yeah.
post like the extended interview that wasn't on the episode, Julie tells Matt that, like, hey, just so you know, this happened, and like he has to give this response, and it was good. It was like fine. It was very like he was trying not to like make any definitive statement about anything. He's like, oh, okay, So I think after that, they were like, hey, Julie, we can't be telling house guests this, but I wish they were, because that is like the amount of, well, and this is something, I feel like they used to do this in other seasons where they would have like trivia on stuff you missed. I specifically remember there was a
There's Brett
season.
Favre one, right?
That's what I was going to say. When Brett Favre, I
Yep.
think, went to the Vikings, that was
I think it
like,
was when he went to the Jets, even.
really? Okay, because I remember like there was someone like they were asking like what team did he go to or something, and that was so like I wish they would do more like that, because I love those moments of
Yeah.
house guests like learning about world events that like seem impossible, and
Yep.
I feel like there have been a couple, not even, I mean, it doesn't have to be political because that could get dicey,
Yeah.
but just like, I don't know, there have been a lot of things that have been crazy, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I would enjoy the aspect of like these people being shut out from the rest of the world. Watching people's reaction to learning news, I think, would be kind of cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm all in on that.
All right. Anything else on this finale?
I don't think so. Big fan.
Yeah,
Might
good
have brought
season.
me back in, but more back in than Big Brother than I used to be.
I think. Well, here's my thing too. I think the fact that like the stats I was reading off was posted by Big Brother themselves. I'm glad that they recognized that this was a good season, and they
Yep.
hopefully take note at some of the things that made it that way. And
AI Arena. Gotta
AI
do it
Arena
again.
was huge. We got to bring it back. Let's run it back. Let's cast the right people, right? I think hopefully they kind of see who we want to see and not.
I mean, half these people weren't like great in general, but the AI Arena, I feel like, just brought so much out. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've said before, like, this isn't the best cast I've ever seen. Maybe there was something special about them that I don't necessarily see, but
There's a lot of
I
duds.
don't know that it was. Yeah, I don't know it was a particularly special cast. It was just a lot of people who were playing the game and were trying to play for themselves, which is cool.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
maybe that's it.
Yep. Completely agree. All right. Well, that's it for this episode. For more episodes, visit noncamelpersonal.com. Listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere released a podcast. We're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at NGAPPod, at NGAPPod. I'm Nathan. This is Tony, and we'll see you for next season of Big Brother.
Shout out on my dogs at the crib.